I'm joined now by Dr. Alison Wakefield, and we're going to be talking about the security implications of Brexit. Now, clearly, we don't have the honour that the House of Commons had when they could have a two-day debate on this subject. We're restricted to a slightly smaller time period than that. So we'll rattle through some of the most pertinent issues on this debate, Alison, if we can. And start off really by looking at the work that you've been doing with London First and the security and resilience implications of Brexit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, London First is a business association of London-based organisations. It's called London First because it's about promoting London on the global stage as a place to do business compared with other capitals around the world. And so it's got a sort of global outlook. And following the referendum, London First had a series of business breakfasts on different topics, including security and resilience, and found there was a great appetite among their members for information in this area. And so the Security and Resilience Network of London First, which is run by Robert Hall, with an advisory board chaired by Sir David Finesse, they decided to embark on a series of reports, and we produced the first one in October, which is a general look at the security and resilience implications of Brexit. So that's available online, and that's going to be the first in a series of reports that we'll be writing, looking at more specialist areas in the subsequent reports.
Has it been well received? Do you know how far the impact of it has been, how wide the readership might have been?
It's difficult to tell. There's been quite a bit of interest. One of the comments that I had back was that it was very useful to have the number of issues that we covered in a single place, because that doesn't seem to have been done by anybody else. They've tended to, others have tended to home in on specific areas. So our first report was well received in that respect, and we hope that with the others as well, the same will apply, that we will have provided a fuller look at the implications in a number of areas, which will be very important as we go forward and negotiate Brexit, for all the politicians in particular who are having to work through all the details, because if you look at any policy area, you know, the issues become quite complex, and so we hope that this will help give those decision makers a good source of information for thinking those issues through, and also other stakeholders who may want their voice to be heard in the process.
Okay, thank you. So what are the implications of Brexit for the security of the United Kingdom?
It's multifaceted, as reflected in the report, and we could look at it in terms of the foreign policy approach. So within the EU structures, an element of that is cooperation between member states in relation to external threats, and some of those current issues include the crisis in the Middle East, and the subsequent refugee crisis, the threat of Putin in the Ukraine and the Baltic states, and now the information war that Putin has embarked on. And so these are issues that the European Union come together to look at. There isn't an EU army, which has become a hot political topic, and I don't think there will be, but I think we will see close military cooperation. The way that military cooperation works at the moment is in terms of small targeted interventions, missions to deal with Somali piracy, human trafficking, migration in the Mediterranean, people smuggling rather in the Mediterranean. So there's that dimension, and so in foreign policy terms, we would obviously need to come to other arrangements. Of course, we've got NATO, and that's evidently a hot political topic with the proclamations that Trump has made. So certainly a different relationship in terms of foreign policy. Then you've got the internal security within the EU, and so that's that shared capability to deal with crime and terrorism and issues that cut across borders. So the UK has played a central role in shaping the nature of cooperative arrangements that have developed, and we would need to take a step back from that if we leave, or when we leave the European Union. Of course, we would then come to some sort of arrangement following that. So the arrangements that are in place for other nations are there are two types of agreements: strategic agreements and operational agreements that other countries can make. The strategic agreements are more general, less in-depth, and the operational agreements are much more extensive, and that's the sort of arrangement that the likes of Switzerland, Norway and Iceland have with the EU. Those agreements don't extend as far as being a full member of Europol, so if we're not a member of Europol, we will lose access to certain elements of that infrastructure, like the Europol information system. We won't be able to lead missions as we do in the case of cybercrime at the moment, so we would have a more limited relationship. Now, an interesting development has been that people might recall after the referendum, the UK Commissioner, Sir Jonathan Hill, resigned, and he had a finance portfolio which left the European Union needing to decide what sort of portfolio they would give the replacement. Interestingly, they came up with a security portfolio, despite the fact that we are going to be leaving. So the former UK ambassador to France, Sir Julian King, has taken on that remit, and it's called the Security Union, which is the strategy around which this portfolio is centred, and that covers the arrangements for internal EU cooperation around terrorism and crime. So he's obviously got a big role in shaping that, and it does give the UK an opportunity for some leadership at this uncertain time. So we need to make sure that there is some sort of cooperation arrangement in place there. Then, of course, there are other dimensions, such as the UK's own security. So how will leaving the EU and losing some of those links impact on us? And I suppose not just the loss of the links, but other implications for the country. So if we go into recession, for example, that will have an impact on our security simply through the increasing fiscal austerity and the challenge of finding the funds we would want for our military, our police, our justice system, etc. So economic strength is very much tied up with security. There are obviously issues like the protection of our borders, and we're probably looking towards a system that is going to be more intensive, more costly than we've got now. We'll need to decide what sort of arrangements we want to come to with different countries around the world, how rigorous we need our visa regimes to be. We'll have to extend border checks, and certainly the process of time of a non-EU citizen is on average a lot longer than an EU citizen, so there are those extra costs. We might want to think a bit more about identity management as well. You know, so well, we need to do more to deal with illegal immigration.
Sorry, Alison, to interrupt. Just going back to a point you raised earlier. I'm interested in this idea about cooperation with other parts of the EU.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that we've almost got a choice here of whether we try to go for associate membership of some of these European bodies,
Yeah.
or whether we decide to slightly more go it alone and work out and negotiate individual agreements with lots of different countries. And I know that different non-EU states have approached this in a different way. I mean, it seems to me that there are dangers in doing that individual approach with different countries. If you've got, say, a criminal who's on the run from London,
Yeah.
we don't know where he or she is heading, we need surely to have a body, a central body that we can go to get more advice and assistance rather than going around lots of different countries. Do we still have a choice over which option we go for in that regard?
Well, we still want to have a relationship with the EU because the alternative is to have bilateral arrangements with all the member states, and that is much more time consuming and resource intensive. You know, being part of the EU, it's treated as one system, and that means that the sharing of information happens much more quickly. But by setting up an operational agreement with the EU, we would get access to the majority of that infrastructure. But as I said, not all of it, and we wouldn't have the leadership role, which we've had a very heavy leadership role to date. So
particularly around cybercrime, I believe.
Yeah. Also, as I said, we lead a cybercrime task force right now. We do, of course, have our Five Eyes links. So the Five Eyes countries are the major English-speaking countries. So the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and ourselves. We've often been a useful gateway for the Five Eyes countries to the data within the European Union. So they will lose some of that access as well through us. Just to carry on about the security implications, because they cover quite a number of areas. Another aspect which would particularly interest people in our security management programme is the implications for corporate security. And that, I guess, is really the general issues of economic uncertainty, possibly having to rely even less on the state. And so I think what both the corporate sector and the government sector need to be pushing for is more public-private partnership. Fortunately, things are moving in the right direction there anyway, with the way that the Home Office is becoming reorganised to accommodate that. So the Home Office is starting to get a bit smarter and a bit more aware about how it can improve its relationship with the private sector in a number of areas. So from sharing capability right through to smart procurement of security services. There's the area of data sharing, and a new regulation coming into force soon, the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. That's a regulation that goes much further than the Data Protection Act. Now, I think we would have pretty much the same outcome, really, being inside or outside the EU, because we would need to adhere to the requirements of the GDPR anyway if we want to do business in the EU. And it's mainly around the area of protection of customer data. Implications for businesses, business opportunities, businesses that specialise in that, and measures that should benefit us as citizens. And then the final area, which is a very important one, is around community resilience. And so there I'm talking about the issues like the spike in hate crime that we experienced. Obviously the referendum has been quite divisive, and so we need to make sure that we manage that, and Britain doesn't become less of a welcoming country as a result of this.
Okay, thank you. So, what would happen if we come out of the Article 50 negotiations with no deal on a lot of these issues?
If we had no deal, we would then probably have no operational agreement in place with Europol, for example. So that's the major concern, really, would be suddenly losing access to all of that data, all of those resources, and we would revert straight to Europol arrangements. So obviously there are still arrangements in place there, but I meant Interpol, not Europol. So Interpol exists to help facilitate cooperation between individual countries, and that extends to extradition as well. But talking about much more cumbersome processes because they will operate bilaterally. We would lose an awful lot of important infrastructure.
Thank you, Alison. We've got just 1 minute for a very quick question that we've got coming from David, who's asked, do you think there's a good chance of other countries leaving the EU, maybe creating a domino effect on remaining states? I'm not sure that's a question that we can answer at this stage.
Yeah, difficult to address that in a minute.
Yeah, less now. Yeah.
But, obviously it's something that other EU member states are incredibly conscious about, and it's one of the major threats that they mention in their recently published global strategy on foreign and security policy, that threat to the EU's very existence. So it really is going to be a case of wait and see. There seems to be evidence that voters in other countries have moved somewhat away from wanting to break away because they're seeing how complex it's proving to be in this country, but it remains an issue, and I think that the EU are still going to be looking at how they can develop in order to try and make sure that it remains a cohesive entity, and that it adapts to the issues that are really coming out of all this.
Okay, thank you so much, Alison. You've made what is a really complex subject quite accessible there, so thank you. We could talk about this for a long time. Thank you very much indeed.